Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Tim Maurer, who, like me, is also a certified financial planner and an investment advisor, and he has the opportunity to speak and write and teach about investments and financial planning to a very broad audience. Not the least of which is that he's written a great book called The Ultimate Financial Plan: Balancing Your Money and Life, which really struck me because I talk a lot about that. So, Tim, let's cut right to it. What is the purpose? What was the purpose of your book in trying to teach people about balancing life and money?
Well, Doug, I'll tell you, after I wrote the book and after the titling process was done, I realized that there was actually one misnomer here, and that is in the subtitle. It says balancing your money and life. And I think one of the problems that folks have is perceiving their dealings with money as though they are two entirely separate things that require balance. I think it would have been better to say the intersection of money and life, because that's really what we're all dealing with on a daily basis. And so with the Ultimate Financial Plan, part of the objective was not just to give people a bunch of prescriptions that they may have heard many times before, but to really integrate how they deal with money in their lives, with the emphasis on their lives. Because let's face it, that's really the important thing to remember. Money is not a living thing. It's not a inherently good or an inherently bad thing. It's just a thing. It's a neutral tool that when we use it well, it can be a great help. When we use it poorly, it can be a major detriment to our lives. So really the objective of the book was to help people see money within the context of their lives, putting their lives at the forefront, not necessarily their dollars.
So give me an example of what you mean by integrating your life and your money.
Well, I think a lot of people see these things as separate. It's almost like, well, over here in the financial realm, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, but they see it almost as separate from their lives. And for example, if they end up getting a bonus at the end of the year from their company, they may come to you or me and say, well, gosh, I know I should save this money, but what I'd really like to do is this. And that's one of those instances in which they see the money as something that's almost opposed to really enjoying life, or they see saving as something that is opposed to really enjoying life. So the work that you and I do with clients, of course, it helps orient them to what the purpose of their money is, what the purpose of saving is, and that way we can really apply the prescriptions that we are giving to clients, the guidance that we're giving them within the context of their lives, as opposed to seeing it as something seemingly opposed.
You know, Tim, I think that's a very good point, because one of the things that I'll tell people is that you might feel that budgeting, for example, is a dirty word. No one likes the idea of budgeting because it sounds like it's restrictive. And I always say that quite the opposite is that I want people to enjoy their money. My goal is not that you should die as rich as possible. My goal is that you should be secure throughout your life and know that you're going to have enough money to pay the bills every month till the end. But I want to make sure that you're going to be able to enjoy it as you go along. And I think your example of getting the bonus is a great example. It's not always that someone should, I got the bonus, I better not call Tim because he's going to tell me I have to invest it. Maybe the answer really is to go ahead and take that vacation or spend the money on something that you want.
Yeah, the answer may be different each year. I love your illustration with budgeting, and I'm with you on this one, Doug. I encourage people with budgeting as a tool that brings them financial freedom, not bondage, because I'll give you a great example of that. My wife and I do maintain a budget, and I check it every week, and we balance it on a regular basis. And I think budgeting has become something kind of like flossing. It's one of those things that everybody thinks they're supposed to do, but they don't really do it, or they perceive it as just a painful, arduous task. But one of the great benefits of budgeting is that I have these accounts that are designed to give us opportunities to enjoy money. A great example of that is we have a date night budget. And I know you're a guy who's married with 4 kids, and so you know how important it is for you and your spouse to have the opportunity to still just be spouses to still just be husband and wife as opposed to the utilitarian roles that we play in our households. So if you don't have any budget, when you get to the end of a month, you know that your relationship would benefit from some time, and you know that you'd probably use a couple bucks to go out and have a nice dinner or something like that. If you don't have that budget item set aside already, then you almost feel guilty to go and enjoy that time with your spouse. But for us, since we utilize a budget, and since we've got an account within our budget that's labeled date night, we know we've got that money there. It's actually saved to help us enjoy one another. And I think that's one of the great benefits that budgeting gives us, and some discipline in your finances actually gives us freedom.
Let's hear it for freedom. We're talking to Tim Maurer, who is not only a CFP and an advisor and a writer, wrote a great book called The Ultimate Financial Plan, Balancing Your Money and Life, which should have been called Integrating Your Money and Life, but we'll touch on that a little more. Maybe you've seen Tim, by the way, he's a contributor on CNBC, and he's on Forbes, and maybe you've seen him there, and on Nightline and NPR. He's all over the press teaching some very, very important lessons. Tim, one of the things that we were touching on a moment ago, but I know that you talk about is the common problems that couples seem to have in dealing with their money. So can you tell us what maybe is one of the most common problems you've seen and the solution that you've given people?
Sure. Well, Doug, one of the problems, I believe that most of the problems that arise in a household around money, they're based on the experiences that we've had with money in our past. And one of the tendencies that we have as couples is almost to demonize the other person for thinking differently than we might. And my household is certainly a great example of this, because I'm a financial planner to begin with. My father is an engineer of German descent, and what most people know about engineers and especially German engineers is that they're really, really frugal. And so they're going to penny pinch at every opportunity presented. My wife's father, like my father, actually grew up pretty poor himself, but then he decided that part of his life's goal as a doctor was to ensure that his children would never feel that type of financial strain. Well, my father, of course, thought it was important for his children to feel a little bit of financial strain so that they would appreciate the importance of financial discipline. So in neither of these cases were either of our fathers wrong, but you can be absolutely sure that how our parents handled money certainly had a major, major impact on our views of money. So one of the things that my wife might do, if she would just look at how I act in some occasions, to say, "What's wrong with you? You're so stingy. You're pinching the pennies. It's driving me crazy." And I might, at the same time, look at my wife and say, "Oh my goodness, look at the money you wasted on this occasion or that occasion." Well, of course, in reality, we are each going to be a collection of our experiences over time. And that's one of those great opportunities that we have in the work that we do, Doug, is to help people see exactly why it is they do what they do with money today. And then, of course, we have the opportunity to change the way we might do things. So that's one of the types of exercises that I might go through with a couple, is reviewing their money past so that we can understand how their beliefs about money were formed, and then we can establish some unifying principles. This is the way that we're going to handle money as a couple, as a household moving forward. I think that's a very empowering exercise for couples.
Yeah, I think that the big issue there, and really what I often joke about, is that I spend a lot of my time more as a marriage counselor than as a financial advisor, simply because people don't have the tools to talk about money, because they may have come from a very different household growing up, where, for example, one was more of a free spirit and one was a little bit more conservative in their spending. And that clash can create a huge problem for people to ultimately come up with one plan, because when you're married and you're a team and you have to see it the same way and you have to be working together. Let's fast forward a little bit, Tim, to families that are in their retirement years or nearing their retirement years, and maybe they're concerned they didn't save enough. What kind of advice do you give there?
Well, what I would do in a case like that, Doug, is I'd give them initially a brief retirement stress test. You may have heard of the three-legged stool of retirement. It seems to be going out of style a little bit, especially for younger generations. But I think it's a great initial way to give yourself an idea of, well, how realistic is retirement? Do I have enough money saved? And it's a quick exercise where you'll look at, all right, what is my corporate pension? That's the first leg of the three-legged stool. If you have a corporate pension, that is item one to consider because it's one form of income that would be coming in retirement. The second leg of the stool is Social Security or whatever equivalent you might have in your country. I know you have a lot of international listeners. And so we'll add up those two sources of fixed income that we should expect to receive in retirement, and we'll see whether or not that meets our income needs. For many people, it won't. And that leads us to the third leg of the stool of retirement, and that is personal investments, whatever 401ks, IRAs, or taxable investments that you have saved up over the course of your lifetime. In order to just get a general basic idea of how much income those personal savings could support, I just suggest taking that number and multiplying it by 0.04. So you take your retirement nest egg, multiply it by 0.04. That, of course, is just giving you an idea of if you were able to take 4% out of that portfolio per year, which is not a given for everybody, but it's just a starting point, that 4% would tell most people, all right, that's a reasonable amount that I might be able to expect to take out of my portfolio. Of course, folks like you and I are going to do some more extensive analysis, but just for an initial retirement stress test, if you add up 4% of your nest egg, you add up your corporate pension and what you expect to receive from Social Security, and your other fixed income sources, that will tell you really how much income you should expect to generate in retirement. If that number is higher than your income needs, then I'd say you've passed your retirement stress test. If it's lower than your income needs, then you and I can do some additional work to help people understand how much more they'll need to save in order to reasonably meet their retirement goals.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary of how people should do it. And one of the most important things that I've found in just doing this exercise is that it helps people to get everything down on one piece of paper, because it's so often that I'll be talking to a client and I'll ask basic questions like, how much does it say you're going to get in Social Security, or how much do you have in your 401k? And they don't even know. They don't even know it's out there. So simply by doing this can give you a much greater sense of confidence, because now at least you know where you're starting from. Tim, this thing, we started and we went through a lot of information, and unfortunately we are now near the end. But I'd just like to ask you in the last few seconds, how can people follow you and the work that you're doing?
Well, thank you, Doug. It really has been enjoyable to spend some time with you today. The best ways for people to keep in touch with me are on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Tim Maurer, Tim, Maurer. And my website, my personal website, kind of aggregates a lot of my thoughts and a lot of my work. And that's www.timmaurer, again, Maurer.com.
All right, and we will put links to that at the show notes of today's Goldstein on Gelt show at goldsteinongelt.com. Tim Maurer, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world. But if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.